There are definitely some homes that you should not buy, and I'm gonna actually go through a list that I've made of 5 types of homes that I think as a buyer, especially if you're a first-time buyer, you probably shouldn't get into. It might cause a little bit of a headache or unexpected surprises, and you may disagree. And you know what? Some of these homes, they may actually be good deals, and if they are, then I highly suggest that you have to do your homework and do your research before you buy these types of homes. So let's get right into it. I'm Athar Jaffrey. I've been selling real estate for more than 20 years in the GTA, and my goal with this channel is to make the buying and selling process simple. So here are 5 homes that I believe that you should definitely not buy, stay away from at all costs. And feel free to disagree, but if you want to buy one of these, make sure you do your research and homework and due diligence. Number 1, do not buy homes that are already tenanted. I mean, if you want to assume the tenant, that's fine. That's a different story. We'll talk about that in a second. But as a first-time buyer, I would stay away from homes that are currently tenanted. If the tenant is actually month to month, then once the home is sold firm, that landlord has to provide a notice, an N12, advising that tenant that they have 60 days to move out. Now, the landlord and tenant rules in the province of Ontario are not exactly landlord friendly. So if for whatever reason this landlord does not evict his tenant in time or the tenant does not leave, you can try not closing on the property. But if it does close and you knock the door to move your stuff in and the tenant is still there, that onus has shifted over to you and it is now your responsibility to get in. So if you are going to buy a tenanted property, you should get proof of the N12 being signed. N12 is when the landlord gives the tenant the notice. There's also an N11, which is a mutual agreement that the tenant will provide the landlord, stating that they will be moving out on a specific date. All in all, with tenanted properties, there is that risk that you have a squatting tenant and they don't leave on closing. Maybe it doesn't close, but you've sold your other house or you've ended the lease where you're at and you have nowhere to go. It's happened in the past. So in my opinion, stay away from properties that are already tenanted. To summarize the negative factors here, if you do purchase a tenanted property, number 1 problem is the tenant may not move out. Number 2 is, let's say you do assume the tenant. With the climate today of the mortgage rates and the prices, you're probably gonna have a negative cash flow. So the rent will definitely not be enough for you to pay all your bills, your carrying costs, mortgage, property tax, if there's a maintenance fee, insurance, all that, you'll still be short. And the third negative factor is if you do actually assume the tenant, of course the landlord is going to paint a beautiful picture about this tenant, how they're so good, communication has been great, they've always paid rent on time, but he's just trying to sell that tenant over to you. You actually don't know what kind of tenant you're getting. You have no previous history with them. Just stay away from this scenario if you can, if you're a first-time buyer. Number 2, don't buy a house that's backing on or adjacent to, let's say, a factory, an industrial unit, maybe even a shopping plaza, a gas station, something that's more commercial. You don't want a house that is directly backing onto that. Even like electrical lines or those electrical towers that you see, stay away from that. The negative factors for these type of homes is that it does take longer to sell because not everybody wants that. They're moving into a residential neighborhood. They want that residential feel. But if you're looking out into your backyard and you see an industrial unit or a factory or something, it's an eyesore. So nobody wants to spend $1 million and then have an eyesore in their backyard. There can be a lot of noise from the factory or gas station or even sometimes a school coming throughout the day, even at nighttime. So noise is definitely a factor. Even if you're like backing onto a highway, you don't want that as well. So try not to be backing onto any major roads, any industrial, any commercial. Noise would be absolutely a factor in this for you. So even train tracks for some people. There could even be a bad smell. Sometimes factories, they omit certain chemicals or gases in the air and it can smell. Not only is it an eyesore, because that's definitely what it is, it can be bad smell, it can be noisy, all of these things. I would just stay away from a home that's backing onto anything that's commercial. Stay away from that. The third type of home that I would stay away from is a heritage home. There are several of these throughout the GTA, and these are like 150-year-old homes. The reason I say stay away from them are as follows. The renovations, if you have to do any, can be very costly. You don't know what's behind that wall or even on the exterior. Maybe the state of even the brick is in poor shape. Generally speaking, when it comes to older heritage homes and you are about to take on a renovation project, it definitely is always more costly. Another thing is that there is more red tape when you're trying to do renovations on a heritage home. They have to keep that heritage feel to the home. So you as an owner, if you want to change the facade, for example, you won't be able to do that probably because you have to follow a strict bylaw to keep that heritage feel to the home, that look to the home. So any renovations that you do, especially on the exterior of the home, have to be followed by a strict rule and building code that is set out by the city itself to keep that heritage feel. Aside from being costly renovations, there is probably more renovations and maintenance required in any of these homes. Let's face it, it's 150 years old. I mean, my house is 130 years old, and there is always maintenance and repair required here and there more than, let's say, a 15, 20, 30, 40-year-old home. It's generally more costly to do repairs and maintenance. It's a never-ending story. That is with any house. I will make that clear, but chances of these type of ongoing repairs are much more in an older 150-year-old home. Aside from the higher renovations and repair costs, it will most likely have higher property taxes. I've seen some heritage homes in Mississauga, for example, that have property taxes of $7,000-8,000 when just down the street in the residential neighborhood, the same sized home, not the same look of the home, has property taxes of maybe $4,000 or $5,000. It is higher property taxes. All in all encompassing, it is an ongoing battle with repairs, maintenance, red tape on what you can do, what you can't do, and it costs more money. So I would stay away from a heritage home. Number 5 is principle of regression. So homes that fall within this category. What principal regression actually is let's say, for example, you have the largest home on the street or in the area. Let's say you bought a bungalow and then you've demolished it and you've built a 2-story mansion, but everything else around you is still a bungalow that's some are 2 bedrooms, some are 3 bedrooms, but they are half the size. So what this principle of regression means is that your bigger home will lose its value. Its value comes down. The smaller homes push the value down of that large home. So if you are looking to get a nice home, I would stay away from if you see the nicest, biggest home in the not so nicest area. Those homes generally won't hold their value. So the negative factors for those is generally they will not hold their value. They will have a much smaller buyer pool. For example, if someone is looking for a 5,000 square foot home, they want a neighborhood that reflects that luxury, lavish style of living. Not to say that the smaller homes is not a good style of living. It doesn't match the 5,000 square foot home though. Everything else around you is maybe 1,500 square feet. They do take a longer time to sell and the buyer pool is smaller. Also, if they are redeveloping that area or further developing that area and there's more, let's say, condos and apartments and townhouses coming in the area, it will even further drive down the value of the home. So principle of regression, I would stay away from if there's a home that falls within that principle. And number 5 is a overpriced home, especially in a seller's market. Even if you love the home, you know it's overpriced because it hasn't sold and everything else is much cheaper than that, but you and your partner make that decision that this is the home for you. No matter what, I need this home. I'll give him exactly what he's asking or even close to it, and you'll feel good because it's your forever home or you feel like you're going to be there for the long run, and it just ticks all the boxes. Well, first of all, you can't tell the future. So you don't really know how long you're going to be there, and there's no guarantee that you won't have to sell this home in the future. And here's where the problem lies with this. If it's overpriced in a seller's market, even when things recover, and let's say you have to sell the home, you will have to sell it much lower probably than what you've paid for it. So in essence, if you bought it super overvalued in a seller's market, even if the prices recover, it may not recover to the point where you have actually paid for that home. So if for whatever reason you had to sell it, you might actually lose equity in the home and may end up even having to pay back the bank. And this is happening a lot right now when people were going bananas offering like crazy on these homes in the seller's market that we saw in the past. You might be stuck with the home for life, literally, even if you don't need or want it anymore. Another thing is you may like it, you may put an offer on it, you may feel good about it, but when the time comes to close on it and you have to get a mortgage on it, the bank may not appraise it at the value that you've paid for it. Most likely, if it's overpriced in a buyer's market that we're in like right now, then you will not probably get the value of it. Guess who has to come up with the difference? You, the buyer, has to pay the difference of whatever the amount the bank gave you as a appraised value up to the purchase price. The buyer will have to come up with that difference in cash. So you may not even have it. And if you do, it might be, your last resort savings account, but you will have to come up with it because you have to close on this property now. So appraised value is a big issue in these types of purchases. So if it's overpriced and your realtor is telling you it's overpriced, then I would definitely just stay away. So I hope this helps. These are the 5 types of homes homes that I believe that you should not be buying. And if you do, you must do your research. If you know anybody looking to buy a home, maybe send this over to them and maybe it helps them out. If you are looking to buy a home in the GTA or need some help with any questions, there is a contact link down below. Fill it out, I will contact you, or just send a message to me directly. I'm Mathur Jaffrey. I've been selling real estate in the GTA for 20 years, and my goal with this channel is just to make buying and selling real estate simple.